Total War Warhammer is a strategy game simultaneously concerned with both grand campaigns across a densely populated map and the minutiae of battles, often involving hundreds of troops. It forces you to balance keeping your citizens content, expanding your empire, and dealing with the ever-looming threat of the hordes of chaos. Above all, it's a game that will have you playing just one more turn for hours on end. The first thing you have to do upon entering the game is pick which of over 10 campaigns, spread out over the 5 races available in the base game, to play. Each one will last between 1 and 200 turns, and about 20 hours of playtime. Combine that with a variety of difficulty levels to choose from, and this game can last a very long time. Even better, each race comes with its own unique units, leaders, game mechanics, and campaign objectives, making it worth playing at least one campaign with each of them. And a unique twist, each race is only allowed to occupy certain areas of the map, making each playthrough feel even more different. The strategies that you employ when playing as the dwarves, for example, are far different than those needed for the vampire counts. It's almost like playing several different games in one. At the beginning of the campaign, you're given a quick tutorial that walks you through taking over your faction's capital city, and a turn or two thereafter in order to familiarize you with their units, buildings, and game mechanics. Then you're simply given the requirements for both a short campaign victory and a long campaign victory. Accomplishing either gives you the option to end the game or continue playing. You'll also get chapter objectives that are always attack X settlements, and basically serve as checkpoints to pay out some extra money for every bonus objective you accomplished in the intervening period. Exactly how you accomplish the victory conditions is entirely up to you, and I spent quite a bit of time trying to plan out the most effective approach. You'll also periodically receive quests that can be tied to a particular leader's storyline or just be themed to your faction's backstory. While you can get some experience points or a special item for one of your named characters, for the most part, simple currency is the reward for completion. Because these often require you to go well out of your way, and the rewards are relatively insignificant, I generally tended to ignore them in favor of moving my larger strategy forward. The addition of a teleport mechanic for some quests helps us quite a bit, but also feels like the developers realized that no one wanted to do their quests, so they had to hack in a crutch. Most of the game is played as a grand strategy game, building and maneuvering armies, managing cities, and conducting diplomacy. Every decision feels weighty and consequential, as you'll nearly always be short on funds with which to purchase units or construct buildings. In addition to the monetary cost of structures, you can only build so many at each settlement, and certainly not all of them. Considering how useful each building is, it's hard to pick which ones to sacrifice. Movement range on the map is heavily dependent on terrain features, as well as which stance you put a given army in. You can move farther at the cost of your units being tired should they enter battle, or at a snail's pace while raiding, among others. Finding the best way to entrap and destroy opposing armies offers its own challenge, as the AI is smart enough to run away if it's outmatched in a given encounter. There's so much to keep track of that each turn can easily take several minutes, even without tactical combat intervening. When you do enter battle, the challenges are equally daunting. With control of upwards of 20 squads at a time, more if you have reinforcements, playing at normal speed will absolutely test your ability to multitask. Each unit type is strong against some enemies and weak against others, so the primary issue is optimizing the matchups against your opponent, who is of course trying to do the same thing. Clever maneuvering can also reap rewards by flanking enemy units or even charging right through them. Meanwhile, placing your ranged units correctly results in decimating the enemy forces before they even reach your lines. Simultaneously, leaving them undefended can prove disastrous if your opponent has flyers or fast-moving cavalry that can move past your troops and into the rear. Overall, the tactical game is an excellent complement to the strategic one. The AI is quite competent tactically as well, so much so that in evenly matched battles, I often got a better result by auto-resolving the battle rather than fighting it out myself. That's likely more of an indictment of my skill as a tactician more than anything, but it was a little frustrating. There was also a few battles where reinforcements would appear on the other side of the map, next to the enemy army. It felt patently unfair, as it allowed the enemy forces to deal with those units while my main army was still marching across the field of battle. Some control over timing of the reinforcements' arrival would have been very useful. This was largely mitigated by reloading the game and simply auto-resolving the problematic battle. Compared to the intense depth of civilization management and combat, research and diplomacy end up feeling superfluous. While each civilization has its own tech tree, the researches are just bonuses to various parts of the game. The role of unlocking more powerful units is purely handled by building structures. Each technology also generally takes a constant amount of time, until you start building the late game settlement structures to improve research speed. Like other games, Diplomacy is mostly just asking for various treaties, occasionally sweetening the pot with gold. Your race, recent wars, and simply being too big are usually overriding any specific diplomatic efforts, though, so you mostly have to deal with what you get in terms of everybody's relations with you. Given everything else that you have to take care of, though, the relative simplicity of these areas is more of a welcome respite than flaw. While it's tempting to say that the Greenskins or Vampire Counts factions are bad, that really just seems to be due to their labels. Each race desires to conquer the whole of the opposing race's territory, regardless of who you play as. The only race that seems truly evil is the Chaos Horde, which just wants to destroy everything. However, this race is not playable without purchasing DLC. Another moral quandary that's presented regards how to treat prisoners of war. After most battles, you're given the option to either execute all prisoners for a leadership bonus, or release them for some gold, albeit with a penalty to casualty replenishment. Apparently they've never heard of prisoner of war camps. Biblically, there were times when God ordered enemy soldiers killed, so it's a bit of a gray area, but ordering the execution of prisoners feels really uncomfortable. Given how often you're trying to replenish casualties, the penalty to that from releasing the captives can also feel like an incentive to kill them instead. More of a concern is the building tree for the Breton DLC race, which has a brothel as the highest level entertainment or tavern structure. There's nothing indicating what it is besides that label, but constructing one at all, let alone as the best version of a structure, feels very wrong. As a result, I don't play the Breton race. Unlike 4X games, the world of Total War Warhammer is completely occupied right from the get-go. You start with just a single settlement, not even a whole province, and even that settlement you technically had to fight for. Especially when learning a new race, it can quickly feel overwhelming when you consider the vast forces arrayed against you. Fortunately, the AI is generally content to ignore you during this vulnerable time, and focus on the other AI players instead. Even once you get comfortable, the game continues to keep the pressure up. Having a larger empire means more decisions to make, and more territory for your limited number of armies to defend. Now that you're a bigger threat, the AI is also more likely to start pushing back against you. There were a number of times when a poor decision meant that I needed to go back several turns, or even just start over. I actually think that the quality of the AI and the weightiness of every decision is a positive factor for the game, but even the easy difficulty is not trivial to beat. Given the awkward and repeated choice of what to do with captives after a battle, along with the inappropriate building choices for the Bretons, I'm giving Total War Warhammer a 3 out of 5 for morality. While I do think that the quest system could be made more impactful, and that auto-resolving a battle shouldn't be an improvement over manually playing it out, it's hard to call either of these true flaws with the game. Completely ignoring the quest mechanic doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game in the slightest, and I'm sure I'll get better at the tactical battles over time. This game is truly impressive, and has earned its 5 out of 5 quality score.